This is Garis, Masculist, MGTOW flyers. That is 2 3-page essays on the themes of masculism and MGTOW. This is flyer number 321. Written by and read aloud by Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. Entitled NAFFERS, N-A-F-F-E-R-S, NAFFERS. That is, nagging, arrogant, feminazis. Description. This flyer introduces the Masculist term naffer, which is an acronym for nagging, arrogant, feminazi. Today's women tend to feel they are morally superior to men due to the influence of feminism, which preaches to women that women are oppressed by men and that men are brutes, so that women feel that their moral arrogance and feelings of moral superiority over men are justified. Masculists know better, being conscious that women oppress men more than vice versa, since women's gender crimes tend to last decades. For example, women's financial parasitism, women's manslavery, women's resistance to the legislation of the paternity rejection right, etc. The terms naffer to naffing provide ideological ammunition to masculists to hurl back at feminists when these women naff, with masculist statements such as, "Stop naffing, you feminazi bitch." Now the flyer itself. NAFFERS, Nagging, Arrogant, Feminazis, by Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. Email profhugodegaris@yahoo.com. Website profhugodegaris.wordpress.com. After nearly 5 months living in Australia, that's Oz, O-Z, after 12 years in China and half a century in 6 countries outside Oz, where I grew up, I notice an unconscious arrogance in Oz women that I find both irrational, that is unwarranted, and annoying. This arrogance derives from their feminist beliefs that are now part of the culture because they are so widespread. Feminism teaches these women that men are to be considered brutes, morally inferior to the female sex, and hence to be morally condescended to by women. Since women evolved to nag men to be able to extract more meat from men for women who were unable to hunt, chasing game for days, to exhaust them and then kill them, women instinctively nag men. When combined with the above arrogant feminazi attitudes, this combination really gets on my nerves and motivates me as a masculist to counter it, to crush it, with a counter attitude that is stronger because it's based on reality, on science, so can't be refuted. I'm a great believer in the power of labels, so I began pondering on a label that would encapsulate my attitude towards these insufferable women with their nagging, their unjustified arrogance based on feminazi propaganda that is not based on reality. I wanted a catchy term that slips easily off the tongue, that is easily remembered, accurate, and pithy. So I started a concentrated search. I wanted it to convey the above 3 notions of women's nagging that so many men dump women for, women's insufferable arrogance with their feelings of being in the moral high ground, morally superior, and the general feminazi bitchiness that results from that feeling of moral superiority. So I wrote down these 3 essential concepts that this term, whatever it would be, would encapsulate, that is, nagging, arrogant, and feminazi. I started looking around for an acronym, that is, a word based on the first letters of words in a phrase. For example, laser, which is an acronym of the phrase light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation. L-A-S-E-R, laser. This acronym would be of the words nagging, arrogant, and feminazi, that is NAF. That sounds pretty good. So the verb would be to naff. The person who naffs would be a naffer. And the present participle would be naffing. So when a masculist hears some feminazi naffing and feels particularly annoyed by her insufferable attitude, he could snap at her to, "Stop naffing, you feminazi bitch." Why do I have a strong belief in the power of labels? What power? Because when people hear a term they've never heard before, their immediate and obvious question is, what does X mean? So they will ask or look into it, perhaps by going to Google and typing in, "What does X mean?" and be given the answer. Thus labels focus attention on an idea, a concept. If the term naffer catches on, then the masculists will be given a term, a concept, that they can use to combat the insufferable, unjustified arrogance of the feminazis, whose beliefs are just that, beliefs, not facts, since so many feminist beliefs are not based on facts, but rather on myths that women so desperately want to believe in. For example, that anything a man can do, a woman can do. Yeah, right. Let's see women win science Nobel Prizes at the rate that men do, or see women write research-level math books at the rate men do, etc. Or that women are as capable as men. Yeah, wrong. Women are dumber than men by 4 IQ points on average, with a 10% smaller IQ variance, resulting in men dominating the creation of cultures, creating the intellectual wealth that women merely parasite off. To a well-informed masculist, this arrogant, ignorant feminazi mentality is insufferable, that motivates politically minded masculists to intellectually crush it by lashing out at it with violent words. The new label naffer will help in this regard. If it catches on and passes into the general vocabulary, then when women are accused of naffing, they will understand what they are being accused of, and maybe that will shut them up. If women learn that what naffing, naffer, to naff mean, then they may be motivated to dig deeper into why men, particularly masculisted men, accuse them of being so. Maybe they will look into masculism more to understand the mentality of the masculists, asking themselves, why are so many men these days, these masculists, hurling insults at me, calling me a naffer? What do these men really mean by the term? Why are these men so angry? To masculist scientists like myself, the idea of scientific truth is pretty much sacrosanct. When we come across ideas that are based on myths, on concepts that scientists know to be false, then we feel antsy, irritated, annoyed, and motivated to speak up, to shatter these false ideas. For example, the feminazi arrogant idea that women are morally superior to men, when masculists are very conscious that the reverse is the reality. Feminists believe, as taught by feminist doctrine, that men oppress women. I don't deny that. You only have to read the feminist literature to see the history of male oppression of females. But masculists know, thanks to being influenced by masculist literature, that women oppress men too, and to a far greater extent. Women's oppression of men tends to have lifelong, capital letters, consequences. For example, their financial parasitism on men, which lasts decades. That is, major long-term crimes, gender crimes against men. Masculists have a particular contempt for fluffies, that is, traditional women who expect to be able to parasite off the money of a man, seeing them as immoral, parasitic, man-slaving vermin, analogous to the brutal slavers of Negroes in the southern states of the US in the 1800s. Manslavery is long-term, a major gender crime committed by women against men. Women often lie to their boyfriends/husbands that they are taking the pill but aren't, get pregnant, and then force him to pay for a kid he doesn't want. There's no paternity rejection right, because women oppose it bitterly. Because if there were a para, that would force women to grow up, to take responsibility for their own lives, and not expect to be fluffies. Such a prospect terrifies fluffies, who like being a lifelong parasite of a man's money, sitting on her fat parasitic ass, having her kids and the middle class house she lives in, all paid for by him, living off his labour. Women's fluffydom is itself a major gender crime, pushing men into the lifelong man-slave role. The core idea of masculism, that is made explicit in the very subtitle of my book, is that masculism is essentially, quote, a rebellion by men against being man-slaves to women, end quote. Masculists aim to free men in the 21st century worldwide from man-slavery, the way the abolitionists aim to free Negroes from slavery in the 19th century. In light of the above, and in light of many other masculist topics that make the masculists so angry at women, when masculists hear the nagging, insufferable moral arrogance and feelings of moral superiority of feminazis towards men, then not surprisingly the masculists hurl back insults at these feminazis, putting them in their female place, that is, as the inferior sex, as defined by just about any reasonable criterion one chooses. For example, in terms of intelligence, in terms of strength, in terms of performance, in terms of genius, in terms of persistence, in terms of contributions to society, in terms of courage, in terms of ... the list is long. Thus, when feminists hear these nagging, when masculists hear these nagging, arrogant claims of the feminazis, they get angry and lash out at these feminazi bitches, putting them in their place, that is, pushing women to accept the reality, that is, their inferior status, their inferior performance level in society. Many women fall back on their two traditional monopolies of vagina and womb to justify their female arrogance, claiming that if it weren't for women, there would be no people at all, no next generation, because women grow the babies and nurture them to adulthood. Women also feel that men have to be nice to them, otherwise women can punish men by denying them sex, denying men access to women's vaginas, so men had better be nice to women or be punished by women into sexlessness. Obviously, there is some truth in this, but women need to be aware that they are about to lose these two traditional monopolies in the form of the sex bots and the art wombs, that is, sex robots and artificial wombs. The sex bots are starting to appear on the market now, with their luscious curves, film star faces, and creamy, grippy vaginas. Since in Oz and many other Western countries, 40% of women are obese, and about 80% are either overweight or obese. This makes them sexually unattractive to men. Most women are fuffs, that's fat unfuckables, to use a literal translation from the French term gros imbasable, fat unfuckables. Japanese scientists have already grown a goat in an art womb, so human babies can't be far off. When men can grow their own kids and prefer to sex their bots, then women will be botted by men, that is, ignored. Men really only pretend to be nice to women because they want to fuck them. Most men really only humour women because men have an ulterior motive. What men really want is to put their penises into women's vaginas, but when the sex bots come out that can do a better job of sexing men than women, supplied with the latest AI, artificial intelligence, giving these bots pleasant, agreeable personalities that don't nag, don't naff, aren't irrational, emotional, hysterical, aren't childlike in their mentalities, and are programmed to behave in ways that men like, as shown by the spending of these men's dollars, then these market forces will hone the personalities of these sex bots to become extremely attractive to men, so that women are ignored in droves. Once women lose their two traditional monopolies, men will stop pretending to like women, treating them as respect-worthy creatures, and will instead express their true feelings towards women, that is, seeing women as the inferior sex, as basically parasites on men, because it is men who invent and build whole cultures, and it is women who parasite off them, that is, off both the cultures and the men who built them. The far-sighted Masculists conceal this and anticipate that women will soon go through a deep existential shock as they are forced to lose their insufferable feminazi deluded arrogance, their feelings of moral superiority, when just the reverse is the reality. When men's revenge against women comes in the form of the sex bots and artworms, women will lose their feminazi arrogance. Women will be accused much more readily of the crime of naffing and be snapped at with male masculist venom with the abusive term naffer. Men will feel justified in the use of this term because in men's eyes, Masculists' eyes, the term reflects the reality. Women today really are naffers, and that needs to change, hence the usefulness of this term. Cheers. Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. Email profhugodegaris@yahoo.com. Website profhugodegaris.wordpress.com. In brackets, contains links to 300 plus YouTube and Minds and BitChute Masculist essays/videos, and to the book Masculism, Men's Rebellion Against Being Manslaves to Women, an e-textbook of 300 plus Masculist flyers for men's studies courses. Ciao.